Welcome to our live session. The stream is live, and I wanted to.
Sorry
This
about
is our first, very first. Can you hear me? Hello, boss. Are you there?
Hello, have you got me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well, very loud and clear.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Um,
Okay, how about now? Is it better? Is it better? Is this better?
not sure what's happening. Okay, I'm gonna log out and log back in case you can hear me. Just give me a second.
Okay, I can hear you very well, but you can do that. Oh, jeez. Let me see. Okay. Hi, boss. How are you doing today?
I'm okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us today. Um, it's um, it's our very first all one of our subsequent live session. And we'll literally be discussing about what it takes to actually become great at this agribusiness thing, and also how we can actually bolster up local and then international food security, and also use agriculture as a tool to not just only um, drive revenues but also to create jobs, etc. And I would be we'll be having a wonderful discussion this afternoon, and I want us to the topic that we'll be discussing is oops, it's not there again. Hmm.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to be sure. Anyway, okay, okay. And so today we'll be discussing really about the effect of the recent UF tax impact exporters, especially people that have been, exporting to the United States via several platforms, either it is Amazon or direct shipment or sea freighting. What does it look like for, and for that those types of people? And I have with me Mr. Owuno Ogbeh, the CEO of Farmore, and I know that you have been doing a lot of wonderful work in terms of getting produce out of Nigeria, especially into the US, and you've had an expansive work that you have done over the years. Please, can you just give us a bit of an idea of, yeah, what you've done over the years, and how it's been looking like, and for so that our listeners and people that will subsequently watch this can have an idea.
All right, thanks, Adetiloye. Yeah, so my name is Owuno Ogbeh. I'm an entrepreneur with interest in agriculture. I have worked across various sectors of agriculture, from primary production of crops, livestock, to processing and trade. I started exporting commodities, I'd say about 6, 7 years ago. We started with sort of bulk commodity exports. So, the what I like to call mainstream commodities, sesame, soybeans, cashew nuts. And over the years, we sort of observed the industry changing in very interesting or peculiar ways, for lack of a better word. And one thing that yeah, and one thing that we observed was that the price of commodities in Nigeria would very often just not make profitable sense in the international markets, right? So a lot of times we find that local prices that are attainable just don't tally with what is on the international scene. And then of course, when you think about business clearly, if I'm buying something from your international buyers, the whole world is a marketplace, right? So I'm comparing Nigeria with Brazil,
Yes.
with Ethiopia, with whatever. So it can it limits the window of time when deals can be made, right? So you literally have reducing
Yeah.
windows of time. You have a month, you have 2 months, right? Yeah, and then I mean, alternatively, what a lot of people end up doing is um, um, getting a lot of liquidity and buying materials and taking a position, right? So it's a bit of a speculative trade where you buy at harvest time and you stockpile to able you have those sort of lowest pricing, and you are pretty much taking a bet that at some point in the coming year you would be able to offload these goods. Of course, this is
Yes.
affected by all sorts of things. If Sudan or Ethiopia has a bumper harvest of a commodity that you're holding on to, then of course that's going to
That's
drive.
gonna drive prices.
Yeah. So we did that for a while, and it was okay. It was good when it was good. Of course, it's not without its challenges, like everything is. And but as this sort of price issue became a bit more prominent, we I guess, pivoted to consumer packaged goods, which, obviously when you're going further down the value chain, there's less volatility in pricing per se because you're selling retail, right? So there's just less issues where you face on that end. So we were able to do that. So essentially meaning that we're, dealing with less volume, but, dealing with way higher margins. It's a bit more of an involved process. So that's what it is. So we currently run an operation called Stackhouse. And while we have our own products that we consumer packaged goods that we sell on Amazon, Stackhouse exists to help people get their products on Amazon. So we take our understanding of graphic design, finance. Again, you're dealing multi-currency here, logistics, certification, and just an understanding of the overall sort of US retail market and the Amazon ecosystem. And we sort of put it together in a service where we help people get their goods on Amazon. So that's who I am, and that's what I do, and it's a pleasure to be on here.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. I mean, it's I'm sure that it's very, very nice to hear that. And for everyone that's going to listen to this, we just want you to have this in mind, that the services that are put together, that have been curated to help you, is make that transition very, very seamless. So, sir, regarding to just a bit of an history, Nigerian US relations, especially as regard pertains to agriculture, prior to the the Donald Trump era, that has not been up to 100 days, but has been almost looking like 100 years now. How was that really? How was history, Nigeria US trade in terms of agricultural goods, on a general base? How has it been? And is it significantly different? Well, of course, we'll get to what the effects of the tariffs that have been placed on Nigeria, although it has been slightly suspended for 90 days. But historically, how has it been, for the average Nigerian exporter or someone who's trying to get their goods out there?
Okay, I mean, again, obviously, I can't speak for everyone, but I mean, from a general perspective, the U.S. established AGOA, I'd say maybe 15 years ago, which was the African Growth and Opportunities Act, and then the idea was to increase exports from Africa to the US of
Yes.
certain commodities, and I mean different nations have sort of tapped into it at different levels, but I'm pretty certain that Nigeria. I don't have exact numbers here, but I'm not. I know that we didn't sort of really tap into it as much as needs be. From a personal perspective, with the goods I sent to the US, I never sort of really bothered with AGOA, and the reason was just the the incentives were just not enough, right? I mean, let's say on a consignment where, because we used air freight for a long time, because we're dealing with consumer packaged goods, we didn't have
Yeah.
the volume that would allow us use a container, right, to send the goods. And obviously, there's also a time factor here, right? When we air freight goods out, depending on the airline we use, it takes anywhere from 3 to 7 days to get to the US most times. So obviously, that's your cash conversion side very interesting. So by the time we air freight, the benefits of AGOA in terms of the savings were just really not worth it for us, right? I mean, on maybe we spend $8,000 on logistics, for example. Yeah, AGOA might save us maybe $200, $300, right? And obviously the
Yeah.
requirements are, it's not the most straightforward thing to tap into. So we've never sort of just looked at that ever. Now, aside that, I mean, from like about looking to our historicals and the volume of trade we've done with the US. If I'm not mistaken, I think the US accounts for maybe like 8% thereabouts of our export trade in total.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, and that's how it's been, right? So it's not a big market. It's never been a big market for us. Not for anything. I mean, the US is a massive consumer market. It's a huge, it's a very rich nation, right? It's the US versus China typically, right? As number one and two, sort of neck and neck.
Yeah.
So it's never been sort of a big market for us historically per se. I mean, out of this 8%, I'm pretty sure like oil and oil products constitutes at least sort of 60% of that, maybe 70%. Yeah, so agriculturally, yeah, the US has just not been a big market for us over time. So yeah, that's how it's been. Yeah, like you say, Trump is here now, and there are changes that are happening, which we're going to swing into shortly. And it's questionable how important this is at a macro level for Nigeria.
Yes, it's. I think that that's one of the reasons why there's not been so much fanfare around, that tariff discussion, primarily because, like you mentioned, and like it's rightfully so, the fact that there's a big beautiful ocean between, Africa and the the mainland, United States. It makes it very difficult for people to want to scale that barrier. I think that to a large extent, much of the export from Nigeria has really been focused on, the Europe, especially Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and, a large parts of Asia. That's where a bulk of most of the agricultural trade and terms of commodities have gone to. When you look at cocoa, you see that Netherlands really play a massive, represents a massive market, for, as a destination for Nigerian cocoa. You also find that Switzerland, Belgium. You also find more recently that Eastern Europe is opening themselves up to sesame. The Middle East, even though it's full of lots of flaws, are being a major destination. And then when you talk about East Asia, Southeast Asia, those have been the main go-to axis for Nigerian exporters. It's just that, following the recent tariff now, and the recent developments that has come into place, especially regarding global trade, we want to really re-examine that conversation to see if what exactly this would mean, if this is going to be something that will not be very interesting for that space, or if this is something that it represents a brand new opportunity. So I'm going to ask you, um, what recent tariff related uh, developments have come from the US that, that is affecting currently, the export from Nigeria, at least as you know it, in the space that you play in, especially regarding consumer goods. What recent development has come from the US that has affected those volumes of trade?
Sorry, let me get the question. When you say recent developments, I mean aside the
Like,
tariff,
yes, that
there's
that
nothing
tariff,
else.
yes, the tariff, yes. Has it
Yeah.
significantly affected operations? Has it significantly affected volumes of export to the US?
Yes. No, so I mean, again, right? It's going off what I said. Like, we're not exporting volumes to the US. We never have been, right? So,
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, right, it's the tariff doesn't change much of that, right? It's not. It's just not. Especially once you step out of oil, we're not doing big numbers to the US at all of any commodities, right? So,
mm,
um, even with these tariffs, yeah, I mean, so for us on our own business level, right? So again, as part of our service, we sort of we help the businesses that we work with, run their sort of P&Ls before they go into
yeah,
it. So again, that's important because you need to be able to set the right price to make sure you're profitable in your US trade. Now
yeah,
we've made a provision for the 14% tariff, which obviously, again, what happens with these tariffs is that oftentimes the costs get passed on to the customer. So we made a provision
yeah,
for that. However, even with the last shipments that got sent out, they at the tariffs have not been applied. I mean, again, there's a pause bringing everything down to
yes,
10%, the flat rate. Yeah, but they haven't been applied. I mean, we fly into Atlanta, and yeah, they just weren't applied. Right, we made provisions for that, but nothing happened. So that was sort of noted. Um, and yeah, that's that. I mean, the grand scheme of things, again, I wouldn't. It's the customers that are going to pay for all this. The American
yeah,
consumer are going to pay for these tariffs. So ultimately, I mean, again, you sort of get or my thoughts, like thinking about Donald Trump's approach to all of this is essentially to, bring people to the table. The US is a big market. They spend a lot of money, right? So when they're flexing their muscle and flexing their capacity to bring people to the table, I think the play ultimately, while that it seems like there are many potential benefits that could come from this if it goes according to Donald Trump's plan. Obviously, one of those is now bringing people to the table to negotiate, because essentially what that means is like you can see how such a negotiation would go. If the US is slapping a 25% tariff on your goods coming to the US and you're coming to the table to negotiate, then it's like, okay, look, we are accounting for, throwing out some numbers there. Let's say $100 million in purchases from your country. Right, you don't want to pay this 25%. Okay, well, here are our American companies that are selling stuff. We'll bring your 25% down to a flat 10%, but you are going to reciprocate or even do more
Yeah.
in terms of allowing exports from America to your country, right? You can see that conversation happening, and it's a no-brainer for a lot of countries to say yes to that, right? Because again, the $100 million theoretical amount is very relevant to these countries, right? In terms of what they're exporting to the US, they don't want to lose that, right? It's important, and for them to give pretty much like no
Yeah.
tariffs to US goods coming into their country. Of course, in the short term, it's the effect of that can be not always necessarily clear. It will affect their local companies, maybe also producing the same thing that should be competing with the US, and but it opens up new markets for the US, which makes the US more money. So you can see that sort of intention in the tariffs. How things will pan out ultimately, I don't know, right? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't think the whole tariff thing is going as planned per se, particularly with China, who is the other sort of big boy that the US is muscling with. So you see a lot of that happening. As far as Nigeria goes per se,
Yeah.
again, like we need to step our game up. We're just not pushing enough stuff over to the US, like, to put it simply. I mean, with consumer packaged goods, there's so many issues that are bigger than this. Certification is a very, very big challenge, right? Having the right certification to move this to the US, which, again, I think even beyond the certification, it just kind of boils down to the production expertise, right? It's the level of detail we go into when we're running our production to make sure things are done to a certain standard. I
Yeah.
think it's something that we have to work on. So I would say, as far as the challenges go, this tariff is not the biggest challenge. Again, tariffs get passed on to end consumers. So again, I was selling something, it used to be $10, it's now $11.40. You're pushing that onto the consumer. Ultimately, things are going to get more expensive for the American consumer, which will probably
Yes.
affect their spending patterns and their spending habits, which was now where you need to look at as a brand trying to sell to them. If I had $1,000 to spend a month, and suddenly what $1,000 used to get me, I now need $1,500 to get that, or 400 or 300 or whatever, then I'm going to make changes to my lifestyle and my spending habits. So it's really a case of, are these changes going to affect any seller's products or not? Which I think is the main thing.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say lastly, whenever there are shifts like this, opportunities always arise, right? So I think it's also important to keep that opportunity eye open, and try and see what
Absolutely.
opportunity
That,
can be tapped into. So I mean,
okay.
one
All right.
that
Thank you so much for that.
hello, can you hear me?
I think
Hello,
yeah, I can hear
can you
you.
hear me?
Can
Okay,
you hear me?
yes, I can.
Hello? Yes, I can hear you very well, very loud and clear. Okay. So I was mentioning that please confirm that it's clear on my end so I
Yes,
can
I can hear
proceed.
you loud and clear.
Okay. So the the main idea, and this conversation is twofold. We've identified that there are challenges, and you've spoken up to several, which is one of the factors that, number one, the US market is not really so much of a big market for the Nigerian exporters, even though it's a potentially lucrative part, but we've not really exactly developed that infrastructure that market. However, what do you see as opportunities? Now, global supply chains are being disrupted. Several countries might have challenges to doing business with America going forward. There's also now the global reach that Amazon has, and it's a potential inroad or a market entry point for several people that wants to transition into the US market, even though the barrier of entry is significant. It can still be um, it can still be crossed over by services that, you know I mean, like your company provides for agricultural exporters or exporters of different barriers that want to get into, Amazon, that want to get into the US. What would you say are the opportunities for anybody looking to start an agricultural export business, and that is looking for, that is currently on the studying markets? What would you say is are the opportunities for those types of people regarding what the US markets seems to present, especially now that there seems to be a reorganization and the possibility to actually leverage this opportunity, this perfect crisis that has come on the world.
Okay, so I mean, firstly, I never advocate for people going into industries lightly, right? It's not a side. I think the mentality of like side business and side hustle, I'm not necessarily a big fan of it. I think things can start out like that, but like if you're doing something, you want to immerse yourself in that thing fully and completely. There's so much nuance that you learn from being in an industry that just time and engagement provide. So, I mean, I'm saying this now because you said if there's anyone that wants to start, if you're not in agriculture, I don't necessarily recommend just, there's nothing like, is it not just, it's something we like to say in Nigeria, and it's something that I kind of advise against. Yeah. Like if you're going to do something, like be ready to do it, right? Be ready to give it the time and the effort it needs
Yeah,
to figure it out. Be ready to pull in the resources and be also ready to focus, right? You know, yeah, okay, I do some real estate and then I sell cars and then I also have a small restaurant. Yeah, I want to go into agro. Like for me, it doesn't work, right? I just think that there's 100% of you, and when you split yourself across 5 places, you are giving about 20% to something that requires way more than that. So that's the first, I guess, piece of
yeah,
advice I want. For those who are in agriculture and spend some time in it, lost some money and learn some lessons, there are opportunities without a doubt. So I mean, with regards to this tariff per se, I would say that um, what what one of the things that seems to be a clear opportunity is that certain nations are going to have higher tariffs potentially than Nigeria. So what that means essentially is that if it costs me, $10 to land a product in the US before the tariff, and then maybe it costs somebody from I don't know from let's say the DR, right, Dominican Republic, it also costs them $10 to land that good. If Nigeria ends up with a 14% tariff and the DR ends up with a 25% tariff, then suddenly my good is landed for $11.40, and your goods are landed for $12.50, right? So that almost immediately creates an opportunity there, which is absolutely something to look at. I mean, typically, from our perspective, the products that win from Nigeria to the US. So the approach we generally try and use is we look for categories that are kind of big and already established. So I mean, there's categories that do 15-20 million dollars a month on Amazon, right? So let me say, for example, like
Yeah.
teas or supplements or superfoods, right? So we look for big categories like this, and we generally tend to advocate for products that sit in this category. So it's such a big category, and you're just trying to take a small slice of that market, right? So if we're saying there is a $10 million a month, hibiscus tea market, for example, and you're trying to go into that market, people are already searching and looking for hibiscus tea. So it's not very hard for you to be found. And if you're doing 1% of that market, it's a small slice, so it's attainable, it's achievable. There's already people on the platform. So once you can optimize your search, you have a good product, and your price point makes sense. It's not so difficult to get in on that. So that's what we generally try and push for. So again, the opportunity would be looking at, okay, look, what does Nigeria have comparative advantages in producing?
Yeah.
Again, stuff like hibiscus, cassava and its variants, ginger and its variants. We do very well with tiger nuts on Amazon, and the different variants of it. So the raw tiger nuts, wash peel tiger nuts, tiger nut flour, so stuff like that. So it will be looking at things like that. Again, with regards to the tariffs, if there are other countries that produce these type of things and have higher tariffs slapped on them, then an opportunity sort of will open up a bit in the market, because consumers are going to be looking for better pricing, and you will automatically be able to offer that better pricing. So I'd say that. Of course, all of this is against a backdrop of uncertainty. We don't know where this is ending. We don't know where this road is going, right? Decisions are
Yes.
literally changing on a day-to-day basis. So we don't know, right? I mean, hey, by tonight, Trump may say something new that completely affects everything that's happening. So we don't know, right? So again, inside of all this uncertainty is how we are operating, and yeah. So whatever decisions you're making, you kind of need to make sure that um, yeah, we don't know, right? So yeah, you don't want to make a big commitment based on something that
Well
goes and
said.
changes tomorrow. So all that is that is something to
Yes.
think about and to consider in the scheme of it.
Absolutely. And this is something that we need to always pay attention to. Like you mentioned, people just think, oh, it's agriculture, I can do this. And, without prior knowledge, jump into it, and only for them to find out that, oh, it's not really agriculture as they thought that it was. And then it's something, it's really a dynamic industry on its own. And when you're even talking about people not giving their all to a particular cause, that energy dissipation can really be, it can lead to a lot of inefficiencies, to be honest. So and we're really about rounding up this session. It was supposed to be a 30-40 minutes discussion. So I would like to keep to time, because I know this is also an holiday for you, and you need to catch up on a lot of things. And my next question would be to and I just want you to talk a bit more about the services that you provide, because we what we're doing is that in a few we're having to archive some of these discussions, and as we grow that base, we know that the people that would be visiting this discussions a lot are people that are interested, that are showing some that have already started taking the steps, that are active and intending. We want to be able to able to share insights, as well as show that there are services that are available that can solve potential problems. So I would just like you to talk a bit more about the service, just in a bit more about that service, where you can actually help people to make that setup happen. Are you also able to provide support in terms of FDA approvals, getting those certifications? Just really give us an idea of what that service looks like, and how people can get to um, leverage it, and also reach out to you for people that are interested in it.
Okay, sure, thanks. So With I mean, when we started to sell on Amazon, we kind of saw what the opportunity was. So like I said, I mean, we started with a bunch of products, and some did way better than others. And I mean, eventually we kind of sort of narrowed our focus and just stuck to tiger nuts. Now, of course, we saw that there was an opportunity there, and the first response to that opportunity essentially was to just have larger inventory, right? So introduce more products into our pipeline. Again, you think about business, and this comes with different implications in terms of capital that we need to enter business and all that.
Yes.
Um, and ultimately, we decided that the best way to harness that opportunity was, it's a pretty complex thing to figure out. I mean, it's small. It's many small skill sets that you need to draw together if you have to do this properly and correctly. And we just so happen, or we're fortunate enough to have all these skill sets in house. So for us, the best use of the opportunity was leveraging these skill sets and helping other people sort of, also get on Amazon, and also, drive some of their export sales, and, make some US dollars in addition to what they're doing here. Now, we've gone about different iterations of how we offer the service, but what is working for us right now is essentially a sort of like step-by-step service offering that we do. So we start with a profit and loss analysis, where we get all your costing, and then we get all your costing, and we put it all together with the costs that you don't know that are involved in selling on Amazon. So we look at product costing, we look at packaging, we look at logistics, look at certification, and then we look at Amazon fees as well. And then when we're able to put that together, we can now test that against sort of different selling prices, obviously relative to how the equivalent of your product is doing on Amazon. And then we can sort of make a recommendation, so at least you have an idea of how profitable your product will potentially be on Amazon. So the second step is packaging and compliance advisory, whereas we get a sample of your actual product, and then we're able to look at it and give you advice on what needs to happen. So the advice will typically fall along the lines of the description on the packaging, right? So again, Nigeria uses the metric system. We use grams, kilograms for weight. The US uses the imperial system, right? So you have to have your weight in, again, depending on the product, be it ounces or fluid ounces or whatever that is, right? So it says absolute standard. If it's a food product, there are certain requirements along the labeling.
Yeah.
Design is also important, right? Like,
Yeah.
shout out to us Nigerians, but from a design perspective, a lot of times, like, we don't always design for the US market. The US consumer market is very developed, so your design does need to be of
Yes.
a certain standard, right? And then we look at compliance as well. So again, like you said, if your facility has FDA clearance, then that's fine. In addition to the FDA clearance, you do also need a certification that sort of implies that you apply GMP in your production, right? So good manufacturing practices.
Yes.
If you don't have that, so again, part of at the end of this stage, we advise you on the changes you need to make to your packaging, your design, or your labeling, or we refer you to so we have a partner facility in Lagos, which has all these certifications that are required. So if you don't have them, then you need to have your goods packaged or processed at this facility that's going to Amazon, because by extension, since that certification is there, it will cover your goods as well. And then after we do that, then we do the listing. So we create your listing on Amazon. We either create a store for you, or we list you in our store. We often recommend people list in our store first, because the cost involved in creating your own store and the efforts when you're not sure if the product is going to work, we don't advise that. Again, we try and offer value, right? I'm not just going to take your money if I don't think it's a good play. Like, it's all about relationships and just, putting yourself in other people's shoes, right? And doing what essentially is right. And then we offer support service all the way through. So If we're able to do all of this, packages, your product is created and ready to ship out. So we offer support with logistics. So we can either refer you to our logistics partners, either for air freighting, or there's a company we work with now. We just started working with who do less than container load shipment, so you can share a container with others. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, and that's pretty much it. So from an ongoing basis, we also help with advertising. You kind of need to advertise within Amazon if you are to work. It has its own internal advertising program. So we help set that up and help monitor and manage that.
Yeah.
Then we also offer accounting services for people that are on Amazon. So again, since we run your numbers, we kind of help you just, stay on top of things and make sure that you stay profitable. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I mean that is very very holistic from at least from the perspectives of this very very end to end, very covering from that inception time viability all the way down to logistics and warehousing. And so it's I mean I think that it has been um it's been a very wonderful conversation. And I thank you so much for actually joining us this wonderful afternoon. I know it's been a busy day for you, or is looking like a busy day for you. I appreciate it. Just before we go, I just want you to just give us a final thoughts. Just final thoughts to this discussion, and will just be a final word to anyone looking to any final words to any Nigerian agricultural exporter trying to break in, or probably to stay relevant in the US market. What would your final advice be to someone within that space that's trying to
For
break in
someone
and
that wants to break in, um,
or stay relevant?
yeah, so I think firstly you need to understand the value chain, right? There is, export by the container load, right? Which the type of buyer that takes that good. There's a lot they're looking at, right? So you need to understand the market. That's one market. You have the bulk market, right, where there's a bunch of companies that buy things in less volume than the big container guys, but still in substantial volumes. And they want unbranded, you know, in sort of bags type of goods, which they now put into their own branding and they sort of now sell directly to consumers, or via different retail channels. And then there's the consumer market, right, which again is the market that we work with and we know. Completely different markets, completely different requirements. You need to figure all that out. Again, if you're just trying to get in, I would say that consumer packaged goods with the likes of platforms like Amazon are it's an easy way. It's relatively easy, right, to get your foot into the market and start sending goods out there, and start to understand that a little bit more, right? So as far as stepping stones go, it's not a bad one. If you are looking to any of the other markets, then obviously the question is, how do you find buyers, right? I would recommend trade fairs, man. I think trade shows are an absolutely great way to get out there, put yourself out there. Literally, having buyers come to shows. Of course, you need to know how to sell. But yeah, if you can figure all that out, I think I'd highly recommend trade fairs and trade shows, mostly US based, right? For finding buyers. There's different shows. There is the what's it called? I'll share the links to some of the shows.
Yeah,
There's some in New York, there's some in Vegas, there's some in Miami, there's some in Atlanta. But there's a bunch of
absolutely.
different big trade shows, yeah, that I'll definitely sort of recommend. It's a big investment, and of course, it's a risk, right? You're spending, you know, anywhere in the range of $6,000 to $10,000 for your participation fees, and obviously setting up your stand and your tickets and your travel, accommodation, all
Yeah,
that. But yeah, it's the nature of that business. Like, you need to be able to put that kind of money on the line if you're,
yeah.
you want to tap this. There are online platforms as well. I've had success with Tridge. I've had success with Tridge, not for the US market though, for Middle Eastern markets, Far East markets. So Tridge isn't bad. But yeah, generally speaking, start with the markets. Make sure you find a market. Of course, you need to know what you're doing, right? Don't jump into this on the side, or somebody said there's this, and you gave someone money to go and buy you goods in the bush, and you don't quality, you don't understand standards. Logistics is a tricky thing in Nigeria. Yeah, so don't dip into it lightly. It's very easy to lose money very quickly in large chunks in agriculture, particularly in Nigeria. So you want to be careful. Make sure you're working with you know what you're doing, or you're working with people that know what they're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate you for being part of the first of our first ever live session like this. I know it was a bit rocky to get this started, but thank you so much for your time, for your understanding, and for also sharing. One of the reasons why I always like to have you on the platform is that you're really open to sharing, helping out, and you've really also been a great support of what we're doing at PEDA, and we hope to get to see more support from your end as we get to discuss in the coming days. But thank you so much for coming on board and for sharing. We hope that this will be relevant to as many people that have found this very interesting. Thank you, Owuno, and then I'll will definitely be seeing you very soon, very soon. Thank you
No
very
problem.
much.
Thank you
And
so
to
much.
everyone too, yes. All right, bye, Owuno, bye, sir.